Welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. I'm your host, Justin. I'm here with Jason and Dan, our co-hosts, for this winning Warcry segment. We're happy to have all of you here. We're happy to have all of you listening. And we're happy to have all of the engagement that you guys have given us. We've had some great comments on our last few videos. We've had some folks talk about us in the Discord, some of the shows. We appreciate everything. It's just nice to know that people actually listen. So thank you. Thank you. Dan, do you ever feel like that's the way with you get a lot of engagement on your videos, so you know people are listening to your videos?
I, unfortunately, about a year ago, had to give up responding to every single comment.
Yeah.
So I do love the engagement, and I apologize to everyone I don't engage with as much as they deserve.
Yeah, it's and I mean I think everybody understands that, right? Like there's like if there's a ton of comments, like it's tough to really do it, especially if it's a substantive comment. In our last video, we had one of our viewers on YouTube. He like was writing a book about the terrain and like all he was going into, and I was like, holy cow. And it was a great comment. Like it was really good. So
I love
felt
getting
compelled.
those 5-paragraph essays. They're great. I read all of them. I don't respond to every comment, but I still read every comment, and I really like those really long ones. They're great.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening. And we have had a couple of people jump into our Discord. I'm going to mention it earlier this time because I think if you're not listening to the end, you don't hear me remind you. But it is in the comments below. It is in the comments of the podcast. Jump in our Discord. Like, come hang out with us. We talk a lot of different things. The topic du jour right now, when it's not Warcry, is Diablo 4. It seems like everybody in our Discord is jumping in on that. So I have a feeling that there's a nice Venn diagram of Warcry players and Diablo 4 players. So
do they still have K-Knight Shadowstalkers in Diablo? Because Diablo 3 was all about K-Knight Shadowstalkers, right? So do they have them in 4 too?
Like the
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that I've seen the K-Knight Shadowstalkers, but there are plenty and plenty of Khorne demons that are in there.
Sure.
Every time I kill the Fallen, they call them Fallen there. I'm just like, they're Khorne demons, they're Khorne demons,
Yeah, fair enough. Khorne demons and Flesh Eater Courts have always been in the Diablo franchise.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, there's little ghouls that you fight off, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm terrified of the crypt horrors that are going to come eventually. So join us in the Discord, hop in, come talk to us. And we'd love to have you. But without further ado, let's get going with the show. We're going to be talking about the Questor Soulsworn today. We're very excited about that and having fun in Warcry. Or if you're not having fun, are you really playing Warcry? So we're going to talk about doing that. But before we get started, Jason, what's on your hobby table right now?
What's on my hobby table? My Askergon True Blades are on my hobby table. Oh. So slowly working. I've got my paint scheme figured out. And I've got one of them primed. I used to just batch prime everything, then I would batch paint. But this time I really want to make sure I'm happy with my paint scheme, so I just primed one and I'm painting one, and I'm stepping back and like looking at it right now and deciding if I like the flesh color that's on those not vampires or not. So, but I went with the monk feel, right? So I've got some deep red with a contrasting yellow, so it's a deep red on the cloak and then yellow on the inner robe. And then the flesh, I'm working on kind of a purplish pallid witch flesh look, but I haven't built up my pallid witch flesh yet to make it look as kind of dead skinish as I want.
Yeah.
So it still looks more like kind of living flesh, but just purplish living flesh, like really sunburned. And so I've got kind of that base, and now I'm going to slowly go in my layers and try to add the pallid witch flesh so it kind of lightens up and feels a little like maybe decay color. Because I feel like these guys are not as, like, they've kind of been staunching off the I guess it's not really decay with vampires, but they've been staunching off kind of the death transformation because they've not been, drinking and giving into their crave as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm going for with this. But that's what's on my table right now.
So are you going for like a yellowish one or the more classic like purplish blue kind of dead skin?
It's more like, so I took like I said, I've got a nice, I base coated with, I'll show you on next show, I'll show them, but I base coated with just a nice solid orange on the robe. And then I went over that with a deep, rich red.
Yeah.
So you've kind of got this on the edges of the robe, you've got the orange highlight, but then you've got the real robe is like deep red in the crevices. And then the inner robe is a bright yellow, not super bright actually, but it's enough of a contrast yellow. So it's kind of got that monk color scheme to it, that monastery color scheme to it. And then the skin, I used the normal peach skin, and I put Carabug Crimson in to get into the recesses to get kind of the purplish, which kind of turned it into like if somebody's been in the like way in the sun too long, they've got like 2nd degree or 3rd degree burns on them, right? But not the black, the like purplish color ones.
Yep.
And so I don't want to go with green. I want to go, or blue. I want to go with, I'm not sure yet. I just want to build it up. I like what it looks like now, but it's not as vampire-y. And I want it to look a little more vampire-y. So I'm going to slowly lighten it and lighten it and lighten it until hopefully it feels right to me.
Sure.
Lighten it into a white, into a kind of that pallid witch flesh, which is like an kind of a grayish, stonish white.
Well, I can tell you this. I have done some kind of vampiric skin before, and all the tips and tricks that I learned was from Vince Venturella's hobby cheating videos, because he's got some really good tips on how to like make it look like the blood's been drained out of it, right? Because they're undead without looking like they're dead zombies rotting flesh, right? And which a quick shout out, Vince Venturella hit 400 hobby cheating videos this last weekend, which is absolutely incredible. Like 400 videos on just how to paint miniatures.
Yeah. He's going to be on our show. Is it next week?
Next week. He's going to be on our show.
We're going to have him on our show. So,
he's going to talk. He's going to talk a little bit about his Majestic 13 game that they just came out with, and we're obviously going to talk with Vince Venturella, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, right on. All right, Dan, what's on your hobby table?
You got to badger Vince about which Warcry warbands translate the best to to his new game.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah,
because he's a miniature agnostic game, right?
Yeah, or at least the last two were.
Yeah, the last two were, right. All right, we'll see.
So yeah, I've been painting Jade Obelisk, doing them sort of a little bit more rangery. I think the main color scheme is like basically all gray, but let's see. Yeah, basically all gray, but with a tiny little bit of jade. And I've got it where pretty much all of the metallics that are here are jade. And then because all of these ones in the center are all like, they're shaped like stone. So you can paint them as metal or as stone.
Yeah, totally.
Fine. And so I did all those as jade, and I'm doing sort of like I know brass is Corn's color, but like almost like coppery, just to be the opposite of, to contrast with the jade a little bit better. I've got this kind of burnt orange metal for the little spikes that are just randomly on their cloak, but they're like metal studs on their cloaks. And I like how they're turning out. I'll definitely show them next time. I couldn't believe I didn't have any of them with me, but I did a little bit of converting to get a second obelisk bearer. I took a bunch of old Seraphon bits I had and like bits of their banners and stuff to sort of create a little monument backpack for one of my people, so that I could get a second obelisk bearer, so that I don't have to go out and buy a whole nother sort of package of these guys, because I really wanted to play them with a bunch of the move 3 guys, so I just used 2 of the little move 4s and just kind of rearranged them, and it worked pretty well. The other thing I've got going, which I did bring down, which is unfortunately snapped in half, is this little Nurgle Varengard I'm trying to build. So I've got this little broken horn, but it's like riding a moose. Here's that Varengard, who's the actual person who's mostly unpainted, but they're like riding a half horse, half moose situation.
Yeah.
But man, resin I mostly buy like legitimately off of like GW plastic for most of my
Sure.
miniatures, and this is legitimate. It's a resin 3D printed model, and sometimes I forget about how much more um, flimsy certain resin things can be.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah, they can
especially
snap really easily.
yeah, because my first resin experience was with Creature Caster, and they're kind of boutique resin, they're like very bougie resin, and so they never really gave me those problems. Uh, but as I've sort of explored more and more the world of 3D printing on Etsy, I still love a lot of the sculpts I've gotten. I don't have it here, but I play my Gray Seer in my Skaven warband is a
Yeah.
3D print. I really love some of them, but yeah, some of them can shatter quite a bit.
Yeah, some of those really kind of hard to find models. I like the 3D print, just because like either they're sold out on GW site, or you need kind of like a sergeant from a box, and you just need that one, and it's
Hmm.
like 50 models, and I'm like, what am I going to do with 50 models?
Yeah.
And so, like sometimes the 3D, but you're absolutely right. Like if you have your own 3D printer, you have to make sure that the resin that you get is somewhat flexible as well, because
Hmm.
otherwise it gets very, very brittle, and like
Yep.
the slightest touch and those things can just snap, and they're really hard to glue back, in my opinion.
Hmm.
um Unlike the GW plastic, where you can like plastic glue it, like it doesn't,
Yep.
the resin doesn't do that same
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
It's because the glue doesn't melt the plastic to form
Right.
a chemical bond. Yeah, I had a good tip once. This is let's see if I can do it without the camera. There you go. This is a 3D mini that I printed from Lord of the Print, which actually no, this is Archvillain Games, I think. I don't remember which one, but amazing model. I mean, look at this guy, right?
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
cool. So a good tip that somebody gave me once was you take these kind of really hard resins, and then you get a nice bottle of expensive, extremely flexible resin, and you mix like 20% of the really expensive one into the normal costing one. So
Okay.
then you can see like this guy, like see these little like feather things on this guy's helmet?
Yeah.
Like I can bend them like this and they don't
Oh,
snap.
nice.
Like totally bend them and they just bounce right
Yeah.
back. So
Nice.
sorry for the camera thing, but yeah, but that's because you have to be able to do that kind of mixture, and I wasn't doing that mixture, and it's still not perfect. Like I just broke one off, but but it's fine. This is actually a failed print. I keep it at my desk just because it's cool looking.
Oh,
Just
cool.
to remind him that sometimes he too does fail.
Yeah. His back is broken. You see little pieces of his back
Oh,
are
sure.
kind
Yeah.
of failed the layer slip, right? But I've had really good success doing that for like for little prints. But when I didn't do that, like if I bent that, like just a slight touch, and that thing would have just popped right off.
Yeah.
So there, but it's one of those things. Like 3D printing is really cool. But it's you have to be willing to enjoy the hobby aspect of 3D printing, which is making sure that your printer's up to speed, your vat's
Oh, yeah.
clean, you're doing it's work, right?
It's a second hobby on top of the hobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Cool. Well, I finished my bone splitters finally. I need to put them under the camera to get them up. I know. I'm so happy to have them done. It's one of those things where like I got 5 of them painted up really well for Adepticon, and then I got back from Adepticon and I looked at 15 that needed to be done. And as you know, you just like didn't have that motivation to like do it because the event was already over, and like, do I really need the other 15? But I realized that if I didn't paint those 15, then they just would never get done. So
True.
wanted to get them done so I'm happy to do that. I realized that I've got a kill team backlog that is equally as big as my my Warcry backlog is a little bit bigger, but my kill team backlog might be a little bit older. So I started painting the veteran guardsmen, which are the Deathcore Krieg. And I'm going to admit, I painted one miniature. There's 13 of them. I painted one miniature in just like an hour or two, like fully painted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm realizing that I think a lot of these 40K miniatures, aside, like Chaos Marines aside with all of their trim, but I think 40K miniatures are actually less complicated design than a lot of the fantasy miniatures. There's less stuff on there to paint. Like once I kind of was able to airbrush their cloaks and get that color happy, it was just picking out a couple of leather parts, a couple of black parts, and a couple of other parts. And I'm like, this miniature is pretty much done. And I was really surprised by that. Like, and I remember thinking about that with the 40K orcs that I had, which is like the orcs, like the 40K orcs that I was painting were less complicated than the Iron Jaws that I had to paint.
Were these beast snagas or old orcs?
No, these were the commandos, the kill team commandos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And now those look really complicated.
So that's the thing, is I feel like the 40K ones are deceptively complex, but they're not, because they got a lot of things that usually will take, there's like a lot of leather on them. And if you paint the leather all kind of one color, then you get a lot of the model done in one pass type of thing,
Cruel Boys are like that too.
Yep.
Everything
totally.
in Cruel Boys, you can actually paint in just a couple minutes, even though they look really complicated.
Exactly. And so it's really interesting because I think that some of the AOS and even Warcry miniatures are maybe overly designed a little bit. They've got too many little like jingles and bingles and things hanging from belts and helmets, and you know what I mean, that all need a different color thing to stand out. And it just sometimes it gets a little much. But so anyway, I'm hoping to get those done much faster, and then probably turn to my Horns of Hashut, which I think should also go pretty quick, because I got my scheme ready for them too. So anyway, good times there. So hobby tables, all good times. But of course, that's sort of taken a backseat, Jason, to when Diablo 4 is calling to us from the other room. It's like, come play with me. Like, okay,
we can play with digitally pre-painted minis.
That's right. All right, cool. All right, so as far as our Warcry news comes, there is no news right now. We're kind of in a little bit of a dead zone. There's rumors of a White Dwarf coming out with Soulblight Gravelord campaign rules, but we can talk about those when it ends up coming out. So we're moving on. We're moving on to the Knights Questor. So I'm going to share my screen here. Well, I said Knights Questor. It's this the Questor Soulsworn that is part of the Nightmare. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking it. The Nightmare
Quest.
Nightmare Quest box.
Yeah.
Yep.
This one.
So, yep.
Although this says Might and Madness, but yep. Nightmare Quest box.
Okay. So I do have to get a little bit of a shout out. Dan gave us a point to Warcrier. That's WARCRIER.com. It is a great website. It's got all of the factions on there. It's got their cards. It's got their rules, reactions, everything. So if you are, finding a moment, maybe while you're at work or something where you need to look something up, this is a great place if you don't have your book with you to check out some of the different rules or compare stuff. It's even got a little bit of you can put together a warband and mess around with some different things. And so, a very cool website. The internet name of the person who made this is Servo Scribe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Servo Scribe, which I was saying earlier, I think it's a call out to 40K and the Servo Scribes that they have in there. But very cool site. And for me, my box should be here tomorrow with the Questor Soulsworn, the Nightmare Quest stuff. But so since I don't have it, we can still talk about it today, because we're talking about our newest Stormcast Eternal Warband. So, where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start with the heroes or start with the reactions? What do you think?
Let's talk about the reaction first, and then we'll
Yeah.
just go through. Let's go
Yeah.
through the actual fighters and not the abilities, since the abilities. Maybe we can talk about the first ability, but then let's talk about fighters, since all the other abilities are. Yeah. The reaction's cool, right? I mean, it's a very slightly better version of the regular reaction. I guess you can sometimes get a move out of it, so it's more flexible. When you're attacking with it, it's only a little bit better because D6 can be a lot of damage, but
So we're talking about
generally,
the regular reaction.
yeah, the what is it?
Swift Retribution?
Thunderous Departure. So I'm saying
that's
Swift Retribution is a little better than Thunderous Departure.
Swift
okay,
Retribution is, I think, amazing. Anytime your fighter
You
gets
think
taken
so?
down, you can pick another one to have a bonus move or attack.
But
Yeah,
your
I think it's
fighters
pretty good.
cost 165, right? Like, I think of it
Yeah.
as I'll just never get to use it, but I like having it over Thunderous Departure for sure.
I'm trying to understand. I think I'm missing something because
let me pull out Thunderous Departure just so that you can.
Yeah. Because
There's Thunderous Departure.
Because it's kind of the same theme. It's when your fighter's taken down.
So, yeah, Thunderous Departure is a fighter can make this reaction when they are targeted by a melee attack action after the damage is total, but before it is allocated to the fighter, if it isn't enough for the fighter to be taken down, right? So that's almost the exact same wording as the Questor Soulsworn reaction, right? So, like, if it's enough damage to kill it, then you can trigger the reaction, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you have to still have activations to be able to use the reaction, but allocate. So the Thunderous Departure is allocate D6 damage points to their attacker. Fighters with the Beast Room mark or both the Scout and Fly cannot make this reaction. So
I mean, I think anytime you have multiple models engaged and you're not, that additional D6 won't take down the fighter that killed this one. You do the bonus attack one, so that one of your other guys is engaged gets a free attack before he even activates, maybe, or even after he's activated.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't think you'll get to use it much, I guess is what I mean.
Yeah, because it's hard to take these guys down, right? So,
and there's going to be so few of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
Though
hear
you
what
might
you're
use
saying.
it.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. There's maybe some other ideas for them that I'll get to later, where I think you'd get to maybe use it a little bit more.
I'd be curious to watch play because I think it's gonna come into play a lot because you can bring Stormcast down. I mean, they are tough, but like you can do it, so it's going to happen. I see what you're saying, but I think that there's going to be situations where you have big baddie guys that take down a Stormcast that a D6 isn't going to hurt. I think that's going to happen regularly.
I think the thing that happens though is the Stormcasts have already gone usually by the time the big baddies are killing them.
Maybe okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So I think there's two things that are going for this though that are a little bit better, right? Than the Thunderous Departure. One, the point cost of a lot of your models in this one are like 160 range, whereas I think in the Thunderstrike, like you've got some beefy ones, right, that are a little bit more expensive, especially like your Annihilators. They're a little bit more expensive.
The Annihilators are cheaper, but they do more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the other thing is that there's no minimum range or there's no range on this, right? So like you're talking about being able to make a reaction all the way across
that's
the board.
Key.
And this is for a warband that typically has issues with movement, because Stormcast Eternals are a little bit slower, and so being able to give some a bonus move, or if they're stuck in to use the orc terms, if they're stuck in, then they they get a fight. So I take your point though that one, They're harder to take down than, say, a plains runner, right? From or an untamed beast, right? They're harder to take down. Two, there's not that many of them, and three, like the stars sort of have to align for this to happen, right? Your model can't still needs to have activations to be able to do it, and you yeah, you need, you need something to die. So usually with Stormcaster, trying not to let them die because you have fewer models on the board anyway. So
I mean, I still think you're going to try not to let them die. I'd
totally.
rather activate my Stormcast than just use the reaction, but
right.
but yeah, it is a nice consolation. The one place I do think, and this might just copy paste to almost all their abilities, the place where I think these are going to be amazing is if you ally them into a warband that does have one really big heavy hitter and then also has a lot of cheap guys in it. If you if your one Stormcast ally dies, you can shoot that heavy hitter forward or get an extra attack with the really heavy hitter, and then like you can even do this to a Charybdis, right? I mean, I know they're much more expensive now, but you could, and you also get to potentially, depending on what your you know what faction you're in, you might actually have actual numbers now, right? Like if you ally one of these into one of the dwarf factions, or maybe one of the elf factions, where you can get some really cheap fighters in there. That could be pretty cool.
I will say that as someone who doesn't use reactions a lot, this appeals to me because I know exactly when and where to use this reaction. You know what I mean? And I don't use counter probably nearly as much as I should, but like, so this kind of reaction is like, okay, I got this. Like I can handle this. My smooth brain can handle this one.
I think this is a reaction that's going to come into. We're going to see it come into play more at round 3+.
Sure.
When you have you have tactical decisions and people are actually going down on the battlefield. But question for you. So because of the guys' rune marks on their card, isn't this one in the standard reaction the only reactions available to these guys? Because they don't have the rune mark for Thunderous.
That's true.
No, they do not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so they
I was
have
just
to do this
comparing
one
them
of the
because they're
normal.
the same.
Oh, I
wording.
see what you're saying. Yeah. Yep. Cool. But I think this is going to be. I think we would see this in round 3+, because in round 1 they're not going to go down. In round 2, they would really only go down if somebody focus fired on one of them with a heavy hitter, and they spin a lot of stuff to get that heavy hitter to them in round 2.
Yeah.
I just think you're gonna be waiting out your Stormcast opponent before you kill whichever thing you're planning on killing. But then if things go well for them, they kill a bunch of your cheap guys, and now you have the same number of fighters anyway. So maybe.
Fair enough. I think your points are valid. I can't wait to see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be like we're at Nova Open and there's gonna be top table, someone's running this thing, and that'll be like the move that wins it, right, or something. And then we'll just come back on the podcast and be like, well, we were all wrong or whatever. I don't know. So, all right, yeah, let's pull up the fighters here. So, Dan? What is the unique thing about this warband?
Oh my God, they're incredible. They're the Order Palooza. Every single fighter in this warband is a hero.
Yep.
When you play Questor Soulsworn, you get an exception from the hero rules, which is nice to make this actually work. But the cool thing is every single one of these can go into any Order warband as an ally, which is amazing. Now, it is weird because they all cost about the same. I would have loved for them to kind of vary that up a bit, but it's still cool because you can pick whichever one you like the ability for, and you can bring that into whatever warband you want, which is really amazing. And so, like the universal abilities, you can just pick whichever profile you like. And for example, all of these guys have thundering strides, which is pick another friendly fighter within 6 inches of this fighter. That fighter makes a bonus move action.
So amazing.
That's wild. So
so amazing.
You can put this in like you can move Kurnoth hunters with this. You can move Doc snakes with this. You can Order doesn't have the like really insane combos with this that Chaos and Destruction have, but there's still stuff that's really good that you can do with this, which is just really makes me happy. I've definitely done a lot of thinking about Sylvaneth and and what they would look like with just one of these in there, and it's really cool. Yeah.
Well, I think your points were a really good one too, which is like with Daughters of Cain. Unfortunately, the Blood Sisters and some of the Medusa, they were hit hard with the movement tax that showed up in 2.0, and they don't really have the they really took a hit from 1.0 into 2.0. But if
and
you
counter
can,
makes them unplayable too. This doesn't make them good, but it is good with them.
Well, I was gonna say it makes them. I think it can make them significantly better because all of a sudden, you can give them a bonus move and they can attack twice instead of having to move and attack once. And all of a sudden that gives them a little bit more hitting power than they had before because of the bonus move. So, and only a double. Look, the Warrior Chamber, I used that double a lot, which is like if one of your guys is injured within 6 inches, they get a free double. Well, they don't have to be injured on this one, that's amazing. And I was using that with the Paladins to really get them to where they needed to be. But with this one, it's just pick another friendly fighter within 6 inches, and I think that's great, especially since you're going to start them all in the battle groups anyway. Let's get them moving right in round 1. And how easy is it to get doubles in round 1? So good, so good. Yeah, very good. All right, so let's talk about some of these fighters. You made a point, Dan, the other day in our Discord that errant Questor actually kind of means something else, doesn't it?
Well, I
Or
was
is it
just
Knight
saying
Errant?
all of these errant questers, this warband leaked a while ago, just the profiles, not just the titles and the pictures. But what leaked was a Spanish translation book that got sent to someone in Spain who ordered ordered this warband, and so or ordered something else and was sent this anyway. Embarrassing stuff for GW. So they posted all the names, and they were all
by the way,
like,
embarrassing.
well,
Embarrassing.
fair enough. Oh, you're right, because it was the same time when they did that big preview for every system except for Warcry, and then there just happened to be massive Warcry leaks the same day as all
weird
the real previews for
that's how did we
fair.
accidentally ship something that's not in production?
Yeah. Fair enough. So they're all just Hidalgos in Spanish, which is amazing. That's such a better name than errant questers. So I would love to see that changed. But let's talk about the actual guys. You wanted to start with the Questor Prime?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So for 170, I think he's okay. To be honest with you, he's
not one of the ones I'm excited about, and I'm excited about a lot of these.
Yeah, and usually for around that price point, like 170, 185, I'm comparing him to the Savage Big Boss, right? That's got I think he's only got 1 inch range, but he's got about the same amount of attacks, but strength 5 and 3/6 damage, right? This guy's got 4 attacks, strength 4, 2/4 damage, range 2. I mean, the range 2 helps, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm in love with that profile. I've seen too many mid-tier fighters like that just haven't performed on the board for me.
Well, the 4/4/2/4 profile, we can all roll 4/4/2/4s in our sleep. And they're so amazing when they cost less than 130. But I'm not super interested in them at higher than that. If this guy's ability was really amazing, I'd be perfectly happy with the 4424 profile. Like if you've ever played the non-Questor Soulsworn Knight Relictor, he's got a 4424, but he's got a really cool ability. It's not quite good enough to play in competitive play, but it's really cool and it's a ton of fun in casual play. This is the headline of this show. So I can like them, but yeah, I don't like this one, and I don't think the ability is good enough to justify it.
Yeah, his ability lets you do 3 damage points to all visible enemy fighters within 3 inches of this fighter. Okay, I mean, 3 inches is not a big ways. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so
I'm happy
Yeah.
with it if I'm getting 9 damage out of it, and man, that's hard to set up.
and
And
it's a triple too. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wouldn't be using that too much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
If
think
it
you're
were a
getting
double,
9 damage on the expense of a triple with this guy.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's if you set up like a beautiful mind and you've, crafted a board state in which you can actually pull it off. Because your opponent, if you're being straightforward with them, they know you can do this too, right? So they have a lot of incentive to not let
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Definitely. All right, so we have the Questor Prime, and pretty much all of the rest of them are errant questers, with the exception of the Lord Relictor or Soulsworn Knight Relictor. So
Mhm.
let's talk about. So they just have kind of different profiles, right? One's a Grand Blade, one's a Grand Spear, one's a Grand Axe, and then one has twin blades and a Grand Hammer. So you've got
Mhm.
like all of the grand weapons, right?
Yep.
Grand Blade, Grand Axe, Grand Hammer, Grand Spear, right? So basically they range from 165 to 170, and their profiles, I mean, are kind of what you expect, right? In terms of like they play with the ranges a little bit, they'll play with the number of attacks a little bit, they'll play with the strength a little bit. The damage is all pretty much the same. The Grand Blade is 2-4 damage, the Grand Spear, Grand Axe is 2-5, and the Grand Hammer is 3-4 for the Grand one. So they're all within that range right there. What makes you like these guys with their profiles, Dan?
All right. So first, I don't like the Grand Axe. So we'll
Okay.
get that one out of the way. But the other ones are pretty sweet. So the Grand Hammer combos with attack buff boosts really well. Anytime you're
Okay.
getting strength 6,
Yeah.
um, the you know if you don't like to math out your stats, the biggest sort of booster in terms of sort of more damage than what you expect you're getting out of the profile is just that regular damage hit. So the 3 there on the
Yeah.
Grand Hammer, that is going to add more damage than you think it will. But what's so cool about these guys, and the reason I like the 1-inch range ones and the 3-inch, but not necessarily the 2, is they
Mm-hmm.
get Force of a Thunderbolt, which is a fighter can only use this
Mhm.
ability after they finish a move action within 1 inch of 2 or more enemy fighters. This fighter makes a bonus attack action.
So good.
Yeah, I think that's
So
amazing.
good.
Um,
It's like a mini Rampage, man.
Sorta, yeah, for just a double, right? And anytime you're
Yeah.
getting a free action for a double that is very consistent in terms of like when it can go off, then you're in a great situation. And with these guys, especially allying them into another warband, it's amazing because you can either give a free move action to a buddy or
Mm-hmm.
give a free attack action to yourself. So it's just like anytime you're not interested in one of those things, you're probably interested in the other,
Mhm.
which
Mm-hmm.
I really love that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're gonna need 2 more enemy fighters, but I think in 2.0, especially with like the Rumble pack, you're seeing, that horde armies are still a thing. And
Hmm.
especially if you get near an objective, right? Finishing within 2 inches or within 1 inch of 2 fighters isn't a super hard thing to do.
No.
Hmm. Yeah.
You may struggle with this one though, like if you're going up against another elite army, right?
Well, but then aren't you just perfectly happy using the thundering strides a bit? I mean, that's what I love about it, is you're
Sure.
either striding or you're force of a thunderbolting, and they don't compete for each other with each other at all. Like
Yeah.
you're just so happy to use one or the other.
Yeah, totally. And I want to go back to one of your points that you made, which is like that base damage extra point. It really does add up, especially when you pair that with a strength 6 attack, because like when you're going up against, there's a lot of toughness 4, there's a ton of toughness 3, there's there's a good amount of toughness 5, but there's very few toughness 6 models out there, and so a strength 6 attack where you're hitting on 3s, those 3s add up really quick.
Yep.
So very much so. So you don't like the Grand Axe. And is that because of his ability? Well, he has a Force of the Thunderbolt as well.
I think it's because of the 2/5. You could drop, even though you get the 2 inches, you drop to 2 with 3 attacks.
Yeah.
He does have strength 5 on him though, which helps.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to trade him between him and a Grand Hammer,
I agree.
Lose the 1 inch range to be hitting on 3s and do 1 more point of damage on your base.
Sure.
Yeah,
for
and
the
you
same
get
point cost.
Right, because you'd rather have that 3 there than the 5 in the crit.
And you still have
you get
access
that
to the
extra
same ability.
strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much nicer. And then, if you want that extra range, if that's what you're excited about, then just take the spear, right? Then you get the exact same. It's only 5 points more. Yeah, you don't get the 1 inch range thing, but you're not using it anyway. And if you use it on the Grand Axe, you're not getting the benefit of that 2 inch reach, right? So because I like
he's kind of mediocre between both of them, right? Because you have two different profiles there. Yeah.
Absolutely, and in Warcry you usually find the efficiency on the edges instead of in the middle.
Yeah.
And that spear's cool. I mean, I don't need to tell you, like, Justin is the Lord of Protectors, but anytime you put like a pretty respectable 3-inch like just on an objective so that there's no way to contest the objective without being in range, it's just really nice.
I'm telling you, allying him into a warrior chamber with some other protectors, like that is a scary list right there. Because he can get those protectors moving, and he's got abilities himself that he can kind of go respond to threats that he needs to. So he would be better one, because I can't remember right offhand. I don't want to look it up right now, but I can't remember right offhand how much the Protector Prime is. I think he's more than 170. I could be wrong. Yeah, but that's okay. I'll look it up in a minute.
I think it is I think it might be 180.
Yeah.
But it's still a really good pairing. I would absolutely put those two in a deployment group. That seems pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Knight Relictor here?
Okay, so the Soulsworn Knight. So I will I'm going to tell you this. I ran the Lord Relictor in my protectors list because I loved his ability to it was on a triple, you got to roll the value of the dice, and on a 3-up it did 1 point of damage. I finished off so many models with that little ability, like there'd be like 3 wounds on it. Boom, dead. Boom, dead. Right, because it was pretty reliable to get some of those damage points, especially if you got a 6 and you used your wild dice to make it a triple. Then you're rolling 6s, so it was really good.
Unfortunately, this guy shares nothing with that fighter except the name and the skull motif.
And the skull motif. He's holding a lantern too, instead of a. I can't remember what the other one's holding.
Yeah. My Knight Relictor is also holding a skull lantern.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have 2 things about this.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is I feel like just an art thing. Don't most ranges, aren't they on the top on most cards?
Yes, they are.
For some reason, this one's on the bottom. It's just weird.
Yeah, totally.
Just a little weird. That's all.
Oh,
the
in
the
my
ranch.
book, it's on the top. I think they
Is it?
just, I think they accident or wherever they grabbed this one from, they flipped it. But in my book, it's on the top.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. But the other thing is, and very situational. But this guy has an ability that gives you a possibility of an alpha strike in Warcry that I don't think really necessarily occurred before this. Where his quad, it's a quad, but I mean I've played many games where a quad is popped on round 1. If you have him allied in somewhere where there's a I don't know what's the big guy that's this crazy Stormcast guy is like 6
like an Annihilator Prime. Or
yeah, an
something.
Annihilator
Yep.
Prime, right?
Mhm.
And you pump you get that quad and you pump that Annihilator Prime towards your opponent, one of your opponent's main pieces after he's moved in round 1.
Yeah.
And that Annihilator Prime could take him out in round 1 no matter where he goes on the board. Because you move him 4 inches away, and then the Annihilator Prime drops, moves 3 inches, and whack with his 2-inch reach, or maybe even something else with a double.
Oh yeah, because this one says more than 4 inches away, but you could do it with a Decimator Prime.
Yeah.
Or the 2-inch
Something like
reach
that.
Annihilator Prime.
Yeah, the 2-inch reach. Which the 2-inch reach is 4 attacks, 6 toughness, 3/5.
Yeah, it's really scary.
So it's like it's an opportunity to, one, getting Stormcast, which take a while to get in play. You've got them deep into the belly of your opponent, and he's going to be smashing hard something on your opponent's warband in round 1.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's a quad, and that's I go plenty of games rolling doubles, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think this provides. I think this is maybe one of the, maybe not the first, but to me, it's an opportunity for an alpha strike in Warcry, which I think has not been a thing.
Yeah.
I will say this too. I've rolled triples in round 1 and chosen not to make them quads.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really have an opportunity to use Rampage because I'm too far away. You know what I mean, or whatever. So I think that happens quite often. Like you see the general rule, and I'm putting air quotations up here, is you bank your wild dice round 1 unless you really have a need for it. And so, but if you had this, you could be using it. And so with that said, and Dan, I think you've said this on the show before, don't bank on the quads, right? Don't make your plan around quads because you're going to find yourself disappointed more often than not. So
yeah, and I think that, my point is not, oh my gosh, get this guy going and go for the quad combo. My point is just that I think that this has introduced the ability to alpha strike in Warcry, which I don't think happened before this.
It's just a new gameplay mode, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Is there? I don't think, because in AOS, right, you can lose the game if you set up wrong, right? In Warcry, you can lose the game if you set up wrong as well. But in AOS, you can lose the game if you set up wrong because you can get alpha striked. They can actually come in and wipe units off the board. In Warcry, you couldn't really do that in turn 1 all the time, right? In this case, no matter what you do, he can drop an opponent that will be able to hit you no matter where you go on the board with this ability in round 1.
Yeah. I've played a lot of 10-inch move fighters, so I do think of myself as being willing to alpha strike things in round 1 if I get a rampage. But this guy lets you spend potentially just fewer points doing it, right? Because you can also you can pop this, move 4, shoot with your 8-inch range, and then teleport the thing in. And so now they've taken some. I mean, you're pretty likely to miss. You only get 2 dice there,
right?
But if things go well, right? I mean, this is the show about casual fun Warcry later, right? So like, if things go well, which is half the name of the game, in like really weird janky lists, this is like a perfect addition for that.
And it's not his only ability, right? He also has the move someone 6 inches. Or move someone bonus move that's within 6 inches of you, and the other one that they all have, and the reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think I don't think I would play this guy in like a tournament, like a competitive tournament list, but I think this guy's really cool, and just in general.
I'm with you. I think it would be kind of a fun threat. versus a planning to win a tournament with that threat.
Or maybe you play it
yeah.
planning to meme a tournament. Like there's a lot
Right,
of people who don't mind going 2-2 in a tournament, and this guy, for as much as it makes it really hard to go 4-0 with him, it's probably really hard to go 0-4 with him too, because like if the stars align, you do something really powerful, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, his and I know it's not exactly the same or anything like that, but his stat lines remind me of like a necromancer in Death, which is like it's okay, but you aren't planning on him being the heavy hitter. You're planning on like using the necromancer as a support piece, right? Moving that necromancer around, doing the dance macabre if you can get it with all those skeletons around you, giving bonuses, resin models, all that kind of stuff. I see kind of the role of the Soulsworn Knight Relictor is sort of the same. He's not there to like get into combat. He's probably there to cap objectives and move pieces around the board, as like a support piece. So yeah, I do think that there might be some interesting like some interesting ally combos. Like if you can find some decent ones, like he might be an interesting ally. I think I would go with other ones first. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Maybe like again, you might find some fun combos that you really like with this guy. I don't think he's horrible. I think he's interesting. I don't think he's amazing. Like that's kind of my take on it. So
yeah, I'd go with the Grand X before I went with him.
Yeah. I think the only one that we really haven't talked about is the Knight or Errant Questor Duelist with the twin blades. And, he's got 5 attacks, strength 4, 2-3 damage, which is nothing to write home about, especially for a model that's 160. But he has an interesting ability here. And Dan, I'm kind of curious about your take on this. He has the Face Me Cowards, which is that enemy fighters that begin their activation within 3 inches of this fighter cannot make disengage actions or end move actions further from this fighter. So it's a net ability without having to roll a dice, essentially.
It's so cool. I think this is like the last fighter I'd want that on, but it's so cool. They just keep giving us new design space every time they release one of these warbands, and I think it's really cool. I can't wait to see this on either a guy with a shield or a guy who's really cheap or, something else. And because I want that, we probably won't ever see it. But this guy's cool. Jason, you just talked about alpha striking and how this list can do that when you never saw it before. This lets you alpha block, right? Because you can you double move, so you're not going to get any attacks in, but you double move to another deployment group, you pop this ability, and now they can't leave their deployment group. Right?
Yeah, all the models within 3 inches.
All the models. None of them can leave the space. That's incredible, because now if you're in an objective mission, all their numbers count for nothing because they can't get onto the objectives. I think that's so cool.
It's an interesting group of Stormcast that we could see some funny play come out of.
Yeah. As a team, I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think each of them individually as part of other teams is pretty sweet.
Totally. They're allies that are going to show up all over the place.
Yeah.
Which is funny because normally like the sum of the parts is like what makes it happen, right? But this is like the parts are greater than the sum, I guess, and so it's kind of funny. And I think really what it comes down to is that there's no one or two guys that are really the standouts, and that you can end up backfilling with some cheap chaff, right? They're all 160 pretty much. And so you're just kind of living in that mid-tier fighter range with these guys. And but again, individually, you put them with some smaller chaff or some bigger hitters, all of a sudden that's starting to move and shake some things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to either ally them in or take them all as a team, because the Rumark thing. So
yeah. And I think about some factions like like Idnet Deepkin is really bad right now because thralls are so bad. But if thralls ever get, the buff they deserve, all of a sudden, like having one of these in there to like shoot some eels around, and then having thralls
Yeah.
running around in support, that all of a sudden seems really, really sweet. So,
That does seem scary. I didn't even think
yeah,
about I need Deepkin, but sending eels flying around all over the place, that
eels and
sounds
Achillean
scary.
kings, right? And you're giving them
Yeah.
bonus actions with these guys. I mean, that just
Oh
seems so cool.
gosh.
So,
Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, as you can tell by the fact that I have the book, I picked some up and I haven't painted them yet, but I'm excited to.
Yeah, there's some great combos that are waiting to be had here. So we can't wait to see what everybody does and some of the lists that come out of there. So if you're experimenting with them, we'd love to hear about them. Drop us in the Discord. Let us know like what you guys are using because I like Dan. You dropped a Sylvaneth list the other day that I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so scary. And I mean, I think that there's others. So can't wait to see what everybody's doing for
Yeah.
sure. All right. Very good. Lots of great stuff there. So let's talk about having fun in Warcry. So Jason, maybe you can sort of kick us off here. What sort of prompted this discussion today?
We had a couple guys from our Discord come over last Friday to my house in my basement, and we decided to play a 4-player battle royale in Warcry. And it was funny too because they were coming over for Kill Team, and then we were joking. We were like, "Yeah, bring some Warcry stuff too." They're like, "Yeah, maybe let's do like a a Thunderdome Warcry thing." And we were joking, and then I think I said, someone said, I said, "Yeah, how about everything has to be greater than 200 points that you bring?" And they're like, okay. And then another person's like, okay, only 4 models in the warband. So everybody brought a list of only 4 models of greater than 200 points each, and we had 4-player Warcry game with that on the board.
On a single board.
On a single board.
We didn't play the double board, a single board.
Yeah.
So
yeah. In fact,
it was a lot of fun.
In our Discord, how does he say his gamer tag? Dio Maiden. I've never asked him how to say his gamer tag.
It's Javi. Just call him Javi.
Yeah, Javi. So he's the guy that helped us kind of figure the story out, and then we all got together and we played it. And it was a lot of fun. What we did was we took a normal Warcry board. Actually, I can show you a picture here. Let me share my screen. We took a normal Warcry board. We put a big piece of terrain in each quadrant. And then let's see, share. This is something we put together that, this is a teaser. We're going to put out a pack for our Patreons. This is just one of them that's going to be in the pack, that this kind of battle royale. So I think we're going to put out like a battle royale pack with a couple different scenarios. But you can see here, right, that this was our board, and we had a fountain in the middle, just a little fountain. And that fountain, what we did was we called it Fountain of Power. The victory conditions were that you get, for every model you have touching the fountain at the end of the round, you get 1 victory point. You also get a victory point if you killed another opponent's model that was also touching the fountain in that round, right? And then we just played it off and said, hey, let's do it. So we did the priority rolls and then just kind of rolled off, and everybody had their abilities. And it actually, I think because we only had 4 models per warband, there were only 16 models on the table. It played probably as fast as a normal game of Warcry, and we had 4 players going. Cool. And it was really bloody in that fountain. I mean, that fountain was filled with blood by the end of that that battle. It was a lot of fun. It didn't feel that imbalanced, even with all of our things. But I mean, at the end of the day, everybody, I think we let one person we let Avi bring a 195 point because he didn't have as many.
I had 195 point.
Did you have a 195?
Yeah.
I think we changed it to 195 plus. But it was cool to have just kind of big boys swinging at the fountain the whole time.
Yeah.
But that was the first one we played.
Yeah. Like, what was cool about this is we sat down and we kind of put out the terrain, and we're like, okay, so how are we going to play this? Because all that we came to the house with was bring 4 models, no more than 1,000 points, and stay over 200 for each model, right? So we're like, okay, all right, let's do it, right? And I said, well, I'm going to bring basically an Auric War Clan list. I had a Killaboss on a Nash Tooth, I had a mega boss, I had a brute boss with a choppa, and I had a Gorgrunta with a jagged haka, right? So
Yeah.
I brought one from each. Well, I guess I didn't bring any from Bone Splitters. Poor Bone Splitters, but
It
I
does
didn't bring any
seem
from.
made for destruction and chaos for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
But
No,
you
in
can
death,
you
I
can
brought
find
flesh eater
some.
quartz.
Yeah, you could find some order stuff maybe. Like you could get some Kurnoth. Oh, actually, Casey brought Kurnoth hunters. He had 3 Kurnoth hunters and a an arch revenant
I'm gonna share
for
another
our
screen
second
here
game.
that shows some better
Oh,
pictures.
was one of them a bow Kurnoth?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
There's
Which
the
they
board
didn't
right there.
do too well, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
but
expect
yeah.
that to do very well.
So here's our setup that we have here. You see, like we're like, all right, so 3
Yeah,
inches in
that's
the
cool.
corner, and we're like, well, actually, our models don't really fit there. Just try to get it in there as quick, as
Yeah, just
close
squeeze
as you
them
can,
in.
So, but we set up the table and we kind of set this up, and we're like, okay, so what are the rules? And we're like, okay, well, the fountain's the big thing, and literally, like, we were making the rules of this game up like on the spot. We're like, okay, well, if you touch the fountain, then you get a point. Cool. Well, what if you kill something? Well, you get a point if they're touching it and you kill it too. All right, cool. Let's play that. Let's see how it goes, right? And it was literally like us just kind of like, well, what feels right here? You know what I mean? Like we're playing this like battle royale. Like what sort of feels right? And we played it. And we're like, hey, that worked out pretty good. Like it was a lot of fun. I will say that my Nash Tooth, he got shanked so bad. So bad. The first game, you can see it happening right here in this picture. You see that Myrmidon coming up on the left, right there to my Killatooth? Yeah, he did 30 points of damage in one swing.
Mm-hmm.
One swing. And so the second swing, he killed him. One activation, he was totally wiped off the board.
Yeah, you don't want
38
fast guys in those battle royales.
No.
You want to be as slow as you can possibly be in those games for sure.
Yeah. So I mean,
tough.
it was a lot of fun, and like with the battle royale, everybody's going after everybody, and it was really good.
Well, what's funny is who won that was Casey. Casey won it with his what are they called? The little bird people.
Yep.
Oh, really?
He brought 2 Shrike Talons from Corvus Cabal.
Yeah, you can see him
in
right
that
here.
picture. He's not scoring any points right now.
So he's scoring a point right here with this guy.
And because he's got a FOMO Crusher. Okay.
Yep. So he's got a FOMO Crusher and then a Myrmidon, right? So these 2 guys came in.
Those guys are going to do a lot of work. Yeah.
They came in and did a lot of work. And then he waited back with these guys. And one of these guys swooped down and actually stood on top of the fountain to get him a point. And in the next round, he came in and just wiped up and cleaned up. So he got points for denying us points. And then he was next to the fountain. So he got like doubled up swing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those FOMO Crushers are incredible. I've been playing my FOMO Crusher a lot lately, and it is such a beast. I've been doing it with my Jade Obelisk, and it's been incredible how well they've been working.
I will tell you, it is a fun gameplay. It is a fun gameplay. On one round, just the way the priority went, I had one guy go, and then all the other players attacked, wiped out my entire rest of my warband. So I had one activation on one round, and then I was out of the game. But I still I still got second place on that game.
That's the thing about like the wacky things.
Yeah.
If they were so good, that would be the game, right? They're really good the first time. Which totally justifies it, right? You only have to run it once. And they're probably decent the second time too, right? And then once it's not as good anymore, you just move on to a different variant.
So cool. Let's talk about our second variant, Justin. Why don't you describe it?
So the second variant was kind of hilarious. We took the fountain out, and it started as a joke. We're like, okay, so what happens if we replace the fountain with a terror geist? Okay, so we ran the same scenario. The terror geist was in the middle. Now you had to run up and touch the terror geist. Okay, for 1 victory point. And if you killed someone next to Terrorgeist, it was a victory point.
No, we actually made it 2 points.
Oh yeah, we made it 2 points. No, that was a later thing.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so it was 1 point if you killed them. But and then we said that if you killed the Terrorgeist, whoever killed it got 5 victory points. And then it basically became a game of football after that. You got the head of the Terrorgeist, and as a treasure. It basically became a treasure mission until the end of round 4, right?
Oh, cool.
And so, so hilariously, like we had it in there, and we realized in round 1 that we had to double the terror guy's hit points because we had all of these like beefy guys coming in. He would have died in 1 round, like literally 1 round. And so we had them all come in, and we're like, okay, we need to double it, and we can't start to bracket him until it's like the normal bracketing. Like he took like 60 points of damage before he started to bracket, you know. And basically we gave him 3, or we actually gave him 4 activations, because what we did is after everybody went, then he went. And the rule that we made was he would go after the bloodiest model that was around him, like whoever had taken the most damage, right?
Whoever had taken the most wounds, he would attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but it would only attack the same model once per battle round.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So, and then if people were of equal wounds, you would just roll to see who he would attack.
Yeah. So he went down in round 2. My Gore Grunta killed him. And again, it was like a lucky part of activation, because like basically what happened is somebody had knocked him down to like 8 wounds or something like that, and the Gore Grunta came in with onslaught, right, and whacked him and was able to pick up his head. And then he ended up running to the back, and you can kind of see in this picture, like he's stuck behind this thing back there, because that was like the best place he could go. You can see the terror guy's head on the back of his thing.
Oh,
right there.
Cool.
I had it magnetized, so he just popped it off and put it on his mount.
I remember that Terrorgeist, yeah.
So here's the funny thing. Because he's a mount, he couldn't go under the archway, and base was too wide to go around it. So he was literally stuck in that area.
Yeah.
Right there. But that was his only place to go from where he had caught it. And so it just ended up becoming this like whole, like everybody just go over there and attack. And we had some great battles that were going on there. My mega boss right there came in and started cleaning house on the right. My brute boss right there on the left ended up killing the Spite Revenant, or not Spite Revenant, the Arch Revenant up there that's like hanging out up top. And it just was a lot of fun that we had playing this game. And it was all rules that we just kind of made up on the spot, that started out with like, well, hey, we all have a bunch of big models. Let's just get together and play a game. And I think that that's kind of the point of tonight's like podcast, which is, we on the show, we talk a lot about, tournament play. We talk a lot about competitive lists, like what's good, what's bad. And sometimes we don't give, I think, Warcry the credit that it's due of being just a really fun, goofy game to play sometimes. You know, where you can just get together with your friends and have some pizza and hang out on a Friday night and play some wonky scenarios that you make up on your own. And I think Warcry is really, really good for that, because I do think that the fighter profiles, for the most part, are very well balanced out. They're kind of self-contained balanced, meaning that the points that they are usually pretty accurate to the profile that they have. There's a couple of exceptions, of course, but like with all these fighters, if we said all 200 and above, so like 250, 300, but kept it within 1,000, all of our warbands were pretty balanced, to be honest with you. Like we didn't have anybody that was like too crazy, too wild. I mean, Casey had the Kurnoth Hunter, and he was able to. Casey ended up winning this with his Kurnoth, with his Sylvaneth, because just the way that things worked out and people killing people. And when my guy died, he was able to run around and pick up the head and run away in the 4th round. Like stole it right at the end.
I think another big thing about Warcry that makes it fun is that it's mechanically, it's extremely easy to play. Mechanically, like you just you get your little card. It's your turn to attack. You roll the dice. You know what you're supposed to hit on, the damage you do. There's no like this ability triggers and that one does, and there's a wound roll and a save roll, and then there's a death roll, and just all. It's just roll the dice and then we move on. It's really easy to play. You can put fun lists together and play it. Play it really quickly without having to like open a codex, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people online talk about like, oh, we need more balance updates. We're not, but like that's when if you really want to win, yes, the current points algorithm is very exploitable, especially if you
Mhm.
know, like the Rumble pack is extremely exploitable, and
Yeah.
the core book, if you don't have ley lines in the pack, it's extremely exploitable. But like you don't just trip fall and end up exploiting something in like a
Right.
Yeah.
in a wacky setting. You really have to do it on purpose, which I think is a sign of a really good game. I sent you a couple maps. I don't know if it's too late to put them up on the screen, but my playgroup does a ton of 3-player games. Anytime we have an odd number, we have a 3-player game, and we just drop it down to 800 points.
Let me
Um,
see if I can share
and
this.
the 3-player deployments in the core book kind of suck. So we grabbed these. These were created ages ago, like before I even played Warcry. Someone put them in TGA. Someone who just really loves trigonometry, because the core book deployments are built for 4-player.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they just don't work for 3. Like if you play 3-player on the core book deployments, they whoever is being sandwiched on either side just auto loses every time, and it's
Mhm.
not that fun. But these deployments like really hold up as far as um, you know, making it fair, but also having a multiplayer game on just a Warcry board. And then we, a little bit like you guys did with the fountain, we kind of just come up with our own missions. Like we've played the ones that are in the core book, which are there's King of the Hill, and
Mhm.
then there's Last Leader Standing wins. And those
Yeah.
are fun, but we've added 2 more, which is one is you do 4 objectives where one is in the center, and then each player places one. And then each turn you get 1 point for each objective you control. And because 4 doesn't divide into 3 very well,
Right.
you get drama, and it's really fun. And then we do the same thing with treasures sometimes instead. Um, and that's cool because it
Nice.
just like it favors a slightly different build. Uh, so that's kind of my 2 cents. I love the wacky stuff that you guys did, but yeah, so this is what my group has been doing. The only thing we
That's very
change here
cool.
is those round 3 deployments, we make them round 2, because it's no
Mm.
fun to have one of your groups show up and not get to do
Yeah.
anything, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we changed it all to round 2.
Yep.
These are great little deployments for a three-person game's really hard. Obviously, 4-person game, like you each have a quadrant and can figure that out, and the core rule
Yep.
book has a good layout for that, right? But 3-player
Right.
is yeah, like you said, totally much trickier.
Yeah,
We
these
kind of
are
found that same thing out in Frostgrave, didn't we, Jason?
Yep.
It's the
yeah.
same deal.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now,
so
is that with
luckily
one
there's
board?
people who what?
Is
Oh
that
yeah,
with
just one board,
one
because we
board? Okay.
dropped down to 800 fighters so it doesn't get too crowded,
Yeah.
or 800 points so it doesn't get too crowded. Um, and then yeah, this person's a trigonometry enthusiast. I would love one day to do a 3v3 on 2 boards.
Oh, that'd be
I
cool.
even picked out how I would do the deployments. Um, I need to like create an actual like mission pack card like I did for my I did a video like doing an entirely custom sort of missions. But I need to do it for 3v3. I really want to run a 3v3 one day on 2 boards. I think that would be so cool. It would take hours though, I think.
Yeah.
That's the one drawback.
Yeah. Totally, but it would be a blast though. It would be
Yeah.
fun for
Yeah,
sure,
it
you
would.
know.
I think
So
our games were only like an hour and a half, maybe.
maybe,
But it was only
honestly,
because
maybe.
we only had 4 models each, right? So
Right,
Yeah.
for sure.
because it was an
And
elite
they were
game.
dying very quickly.
Yeah.
You
To each
know,
other.
like I mean, we had some beefy hitters in there that were just like, it was hilarious because you're like, I did 30 points of damage. He's still up. Okay, let me swing again.
Yeah.
You're like, oh geez, okay.
Yeah. Maybe if it was just like no objectives, so there's no like incentive to have a horde, and then you
Yeah,
could do 3v3 pretty easily. Yeah, that
right.
I'd be curious about how that could work. Um, yeah, but I really want to try it because I've never done a 2-board game.
Right.
Yeah, so would be interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the whole point of this discussion today is to help, folks realize that, look, there's a total fun side to Warcry that we don't often talk about on the podcast because, we love prepping for tournaments and playing in tournaments. And that definitely scratches an itch our competitive itch that we have. I heard one person comment the other day saying like, oh, all of this competitive kind of min-maxing type stuff is probably going to be the downfall of the game. I don't know if I agree with that. I think that actually is what keeps the game in a living setting, because like there's always more that you can do, and as new things come out, like that competitive aspect of it is what keeps 40K AOS, like Kill Team. That's what keeps those games like continuing to be bought and played and sold. But with Warcry, you can absolutely get into it where you're just having fun and just have some fun with it. And so I think sometimes if you feel like you're kind of feeling stuck in a rut about tons of tournament prep, or you're just playing it to just kind of be super competitive, just relax, and one weekend just play some fun stuff, come up with some wacky scenarios for yourself. And again, my basis of starting for something, in my opinion, is set some criteria around the armies. Like, again, 5 models, 1,000 points, 4 models, 1,000 points, whatever you want to do, 4 models, 800 points. Like, if you just, whatever you want to do, like, just do it. And I would say start with the points, because the points will sort of balance everything out. And then you can kind of come up with whatever mission that you want to, and then just roll with it. You may realize that it's not balanced at all, but you still had a great time.
And the narrative rules work for this too, because they create some really wacky stuff. As long as you get Gristle Grinder and was it Stormbringer out of the game, narrative is really, really great for creating those kind of wacky novelty moments, and that can be really sweet. It especially works if you're not into kind of homebrewing your own scenarios, although actually homebrewing your own scenarios also works really well with narrative. But the fact that we don't have time to sort of review all the narrative things or talk about how to list build wacky things in this podcast, but those are both really cool things to explore for people that I would encourage. I've done 2 campaigns, or I've done campaigns with 2 warbands, and really enjoyed both of them. I'm kind of itching to do it again once I'm kind of back into Warcry. I'm taking a little break because I'm expecting a baby, but once I'm back in, I am kind of itching to do some campaign stuff, because those narrative games can be really interesting, especially once both players have an artifact or 2. Yeah, they can be really cool.
Artifact and lots of renown built up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're looking for narrative, we have one of our Warcry packs on our Patreon has a bunch of narrative in it. That's something to look at. Sure. And then we'll release, I think we're going to release these battle royales here soon that have a couple different play styles just for fun. But good stuff.
Yeah. Just remember, guys, this is a game, right? At the end of the day, and you're supposed to be having fun. So if you're feeling a little burned out on the tournament and stuff, like, go have some fun with it. And, and the best part about it is you can just totally make it up. And we did that the other day and just absolutely had a blast. And I mean, it's one of those things that I'm just watching Javi utterly destroy my Nash tooth, right? And I'm just like, I hate you so much right now, And you can just kind of be super dramatic and over dramatic about it and have, a great time that you kind of can't do in tournament. You don't want to show any emotion in a tournament because that's, a little bit of weakness. And
you kind of do sometimes, though. There's
you
gotta have fun in tournaments too.
You do. But I wouldn't speak to a tournament person the way I was speaking to Javi in this fun game. You know what I mean? Because it did, at the end of the day, it didn't matter, and we're just having a great time, right? So, tons of fun, but we highly recommend it. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We hope you had fun with the show tonight. If you've got any questions, comments, if you feel like we're totally off base on something, let us know. Like we said, we can catch you in the Discord chat. You can also hit us up on social media or leave a comment in this YouTube video. We'd love to hear from you. So we appreciate everybody and all your support with this. And if you've got a topic that you'd like us to explore, just feel free to hit us up and let us know, because we want to make sure that we're making this podcast relevant for you and what you guys are interested in. So thank you so much. And with that, have a good night, and we'll see you all at the tables.
Good night.